We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, and we're streaming live online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. The show runs from now till 9:50, where conversations will be brought to a close, but we encourage you to be sending through your messages, contributions, remarks in respect of topics that I'll be outlining out very soon for our discussion. Send your remarks and contributions to our WhatsApp number 050-607070, and we will share them with the rest of the world. Today on the show, we are looking at a number of issues, but we'll start off with the rather sad news about the passing of former Vice President Pakwesi Arthur. So we woke up to Friday, 29th June 2018, to the sad news of the demise of the former VIP. Now, news reports have it that the former VIP woke up to a brand new day and proceeded on his usual routine of working out at the Air Force gym. But he was not to see the afternoon of that day, as he's reported to have collapsed while working out in the gym. But unfortunately, he couldn't make it. Now, the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, perhaps in his reaction to the news of the death of the former Vice President, appears to have summed up the contribution of the former Vice President to the development of Ghana when he said, and I'm quoting the President, he, as in the former VIP, has been a long-standing public servant who discharged his duties with dignity. Now, on the show this morning, while we commiserate with the bereaved family, we shall be looking at the contribution of Pakwesi Arthur to the development of our dear country. Our deepest condolences go to the surviving wife, children, and indeed the entire bereaved family. We pray that the good Lord keeps you and gives you the fortitude as you go through these trying times. Also up for discussion is the removal of Mrs. Charlotte Osei and her two deputies from their positions at the EC as the chairperson and the deputy commissioners, respectively. Now, we finally heard the committee set up by the Chief Justice to investigate allegations against these three, and that the work had been finished, and indeed they had, the committee made some recommendations which the President acted upon and led to the decision of the President to remove these three. Now, on the show this morning, we shall be looking at this development and the matters arising, all sorts of reactions coming out of this decision by the President. We'll also look at the creation of new regions in Ghana, and this week we also had news that the Justice Brobe Commission of Inquiry that was specifically set up by the President to inquire into the demand for the creation of new regions had completed its work also and had presented its report to the President on Tuesday. Now, the report, although yet to be made public, is reported to be recommending the creation of some new 6 administrative regions in Ghana, and the new regions are to be known as Oti, Ahafo, Brong East, Western North, Northeast, and Savannah. We shall be looking at the recommendations to create these 6 new administrative regions and what that would mean for the governance of the country and ultimately the development of this country. We'll also look at the fallouts of number 12, and again we'll be looking at the new issue coming up in this area, which had to do with the viewing or the showing of Honorable Kennedy Agyapong's Who Watches the Watchman. The reaction to that will be looked at also, and as granting an interview on this network in response or in reaction to the kind of overwhelming response the Ghanaians gave to his number 12. What are the issues there? We shall be interrogating this matter into some detail later on in the show. These are the subject matter for the show this morning. We'll take a break. When we come back, I will introduce to you the panelists for today's conversations. Stick and stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Newday Saturday edition. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, and we're live online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. We'll quickly introduce the panelists for today's conversation. For my far left, we have Mr. Yao Pong. He is a private legal practitioner. Next is Mr. Obi Amwa. He is the Honourable Member of Parliament for Ekwapem South and also the Deputy Minister for Local Government and Rural Development. Next is Dr. Frankie Asari-Donko. He is a political scientist and a media consultant. Last but not least, we have Mr. Kofi Adams. He is the national organizer of the National Democratic Congress, NDC. We are expecting one last panelist. When he comes in, we'll do the needful to introduce him. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to the show. We'll start off with the rather sad news about the passing of former Vice President Pakwesi Emisatha. So news broke early yesterday morning that the former VIP had collapsed in a gym where he had gone to work out. Apparently that was one of his routines in the mornings, and he collapsed in the gym. He was rushed to the 37 military hospital, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. Now there's been several outpour of sympathy and show of love so far. On the show this morning, we will be looking at the person of the former Vice President Pakwesi Emisatha, what he's done for the country, and what we're going to miss specifically as he's gone. Indeed, the NDC has, yes, reacted in a way, and we will be hearing from some members of the NDC. I believe we do have some pictures to go with that, or video. So if it's ready, please, let's have it roll.
So shocking that we couldn't believe it, because I mean, remember some few days ago he was there to help his wife launch her book, and looking very healthy with a smiling face as usual. The least we expected was that we'll be told that he's dropped dead. As members of the same family, we had to leave Parliament just to come and confirm with the family that what we've heard is true. And to our utmost surprise, I mean, it's confirmed that yes, he went up. They woke up this morning. He drove himself with the wife to the gym, and at the gym, after the exercise, they were doing some aerobics. He collapsed. They managed to resuscitate him and rush to 37. And even there, 30 minutes after, he relapsed again and he couldn't make it again. And this is really a very big loss to us as members of the NDC.
I had a message on my phone, and as I was calling to confirm, then I heard it on the radio. But I still took it with a pinch of salt, and then I called and it was subsequently confirmed. He was an extraordinary gentleman. I mean, gentleman to the core. Someone who was very decent in his politics, and even though he had very strong convictions, and he was always talking about how we should rebuild the party, rebuild it. That was his main focus, consistently. Anytime you met him, he was talking about how we can rebuild our party. So it's really devastating. I mean, that's the best word to use. It's shocking and devastating that somebody wakes up in the morning going to the gym and he doesn't come back. It's sad.
Devastating and shocking, those were the words used there, and quite apt for the occasion, rather sudden. And I'll go to Mr. Kofi Adams here for your reaction. Obviously, we do know, I mean, you've spoken to the media quite at length, but what is the feeling like?
Good morning to you and then to our viewers. Yesterday, 29th June, happens to be one of such days that one would not really want to remember, or will wish it never really came. And interesting as the world would be, this gentleman who himself was born on a 29th. And so just exactly 2 months yesterday, he was celebrating his birthday. That's 29th April. And 2 months later, on the 29th of June, waking up healthy, not driving to the hospital, but driving to a gym. to make yourself even much more fitter for the task ahead, only for you to find your end there, was really shocking. And to some of us who happen to meet him so closely in the last days, this very week, on Wednesday we had a very long meeting at the office. The Council of Elders of our party had a meeting which commenced right about 10 o'clock, traveled all through up till about 2. And he sat through all these periods. And one thing about Pakwesi is his punctuality. And so if the meeting is supposed to start at 10, be sure that he will be there before 10. And we had series of engagements and a lot of far-reaching decisions that I was expected to finalize the document and make it available to him at least by Tuesday next week. So another emergency meeting of the council could be called. So this wasn't something we truly expected. Like we have witnessed and many have spoken about, usually they say the bad is not said of the dead. But our former and late vice president is somebody that is so difficult to find fault to say that, oh, it is because we don't say the bad things about the dead. That's why people are not saying. It's really, you may disagree with his politics, you may disagree with his style, but you cannot find wrong. You cannot say that, no, this is somebody who is snobbish, this is somebody who comes through as, no. My working with him closely started after we lost the 2000 elections, and because he developed a lot more interest in the party activities. And surprisingly so, you find him developing a lot more interest anytime we find ourselves out of government, like Elvis was saying in the videos that you played. And I happened to be then the Central Regional Youth Organizer. And because that was his home, he was very regular because he thought we could turn the fortunes around in the region. And so we interacted a lot. And late Mr. Achiano, who was more like my father, was a very close friend to him. So we had regular interactions then. So one wasn't surprised that he got appointed to the Bank of Ghana as his governor when the NDC won the 2008 elections. And being who he was and what he does, many persons didn't expect him to be selected as the vice president following the demise of our late president and the vice president rising to become a president. He wasn't one of the persons that people were thinking because the way he played his politics. Lo and behold, he was mentioned, and he continued diligently in his political act. No matter how much you attacked him, no matter how much you tried to provoke him, Pakwesi, as he's affectionately, or he was affectionately called, will remain the Pakwesi that he was. It's been really difficult for me personally and many persons in our party to still believe that this truly happened. I equally heard it very early in the morning because we had planned an event yesterday. And so as the national organizer of the party, I was up very early to make sure that things were in place to have a successful program yesterday. Then granting interviews in relation to the event. A radio station that I have just granted interview called back. I said, oh, what would be wrong that this radio station will be calling me again? When I picked the call, he said, oh, this is the news they are. I said, oh, this can be true.
Right.
So I continued driving, but they persisted. I said, no, then let me go home. When I got home, the atmosphere was not the usual atmosphere that you meet when you get home. I said, what is it? Nobody could talk. So I have to continue to 37, where I met, and it was truly confirmed that this truly happened. And Pakwesi has left a huge vacuum in our party. This is somebody with huge institutional memory, coming from academia to ministerial responsibility to a governor of Bank of Ghana to vice president and therefore chairman of economic management team, and knowing the kind of policies that we pushed as a government. We've truly lost, and not just the NDC, but Ghana has lost someone with huge information.
Indeed, we have.
The family, my heart goes out to the immediate family, the wife especially, who woke up with a healthy husband, a healthy, loving husband, that let's go together to a gym, only to return home alone. And to the kids, we always say that as for death, once you are born, it will surely come, but how it comes and when is what we do not know. So every day that this happens, it becomes a lesson to all of us to see how we will improve our institutions, how we improve our health processes, and what have you. May his soul truly rest in perfect peace.
Thank you. I'll move to the other panelists, but before I do that, let me quickly introduce Mr. Kwesi Jonah. He is a senior research fellow at the Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEG. Welcome. Thank you. It's good to have you here. So we're looking at the former Vice President's passing. Now I'll go to Honorable Obi Amor here for your, your thoughts on this as well. Sudden, devastating news.
Well, good morning to you and to fellow panelists and to viewers and the listeners. Yesterday morning, news started coming in, indeed, because of social media now. We tend to be abreast with news. The first thing I read was something terrible has happened. The person who sent it just said that. And then, so people were going on what is really the thing. And what I said was, why? Who is dead? And the next moment, the former vice president's picture was displayed. And so sad because, as we are saying, like he was not sick or was not involved in an accident or anything. Indeed, he was keeping fit.
Exactly, that's the irony.
If you look at him at age 67, he really looked fit. So for somebody to just collapse after an exercise, maybe the medical people will be able to tell us what could have happened. But sudden death is always very sad. And he really played his part. I knew him from afar, in the sense that at one time he was Deputy Minister of Finance to Professor Kwesi Botwe. That was when I was a tax officer at Internal Revenue Service then. So more or less he was our minister. And he really was academia, was appointed a minister, but even in politics he was a very quiet person. And then became a governor and then eventually a vice president. Whether close or far, you could see that he was a gentleman. And then his politics was not that acerbic, aggressive type. And it's sad that he would go this way. It's sad that, unfortunately, even in internal politics, beside the external one, meaning that his engagement with other parties, even within, when he was attacked, he had a way of handling it. I remember recently some senior people in the party were even blaming him for losing central region for them. I didn't hear any response from him, and he didn't do anything or say anything that could even create more chaos within his party. So we just sad. I don't think anybody would not say kind things and good things about him because he was really a gentleman.
Right.
And he's paid his dues.
Right.
May so rest in peace. And our condolences to the family, the children who never thought this would befall their father, when in the morning or the previous night he was very fit. He had
indeed, the morning he had actually driven to the gym.
To the gym. And he was there with others who had really gone through the exercise, and we're looking forward to the rest of the day and probably days ahead for just this to happen. And for him to be right 37 and not to return, it's very sad. And it's a loss to the whole country, not only to the family or his party.
Right.
He's so rest in peace.
Great. Mr. Pong, the President, I mean, in his statement, I mean, you know, in reaction to the news, said he has been a long-standing public servant who discharged his duties with dignity. And for me, I think that pretty much sums up.
Yes, I think, yes, fantastic personality. Yesterday I was driving in the morning and then I heard past tense being used in reference to him. He was, and I said, well, what's happening? And then I quickly went online and I checked, and it was indicated that, I mean, simply he's dead. And I was just shocked. I mean, this is one fine personality. He's a gem. Sometimes I was wondering how he was able to mix his sense of humor, balancing it with serious work. Because even when he was upset, or you expect him to be upset in view of the language he's using, he was still smiling. And it became so difficult to even tell whether he really meant the strong words which on a few occasions he used. And I think that is a personality that should have been around for quite some time. And for him to just wake up in the morning, go into gym with his wife, as we are told, and not to come back home with his wife, but go somewhere else, and not to be seen in this life again. Our souls are really fallen. I mean, we have to commiserate with the families. I don't know how his children would take it. Yeah. It's a very sad day that they had yesterday, and it may be for quite some time. I believe, if it's true, his mother may be still around at a very advanced age. I don't know how to should be informed, but these days with social media and WhatsApp and so on, unlike olden days where people come from the village, they eat with you in the evening
and then find a way
and then pretend that nothing has happened, and then in a very nice way call some pastors and so on. But now I'm sure he should, and I can't imagine how he should be coping, because at that age you expect your children to survive you, but for this to happen, I think the whole nation has lost a gem. We have lost a great deal.
Right.
And we pray to God that He will give him repose of his soul just in his bosom. And then when the time comes for us, we will also meet him. But then upon deeper reflection, it also tells us that, as I sometimes say, any time of your birthday is a reduction of your years in life, and not so much that God has increased it. So at the same time, death will come when it will come. I have to prepare, not just in terms of spiritual preparation, but even legally, what your estate will be,
right.
What you have done in this life. Have we documented enough? Sometimes I meet great people such as him, or of his caliber, and I ask, have you written a book about yourself? To what extent have you intended all the good things that you have done? I mean, Saba and Co are Saba since late 18s, because they wrote books. And I would wish that those close to him should start when the dust has settled, especially Mr. Kofi Adam and the party people. We need personalities like that to leave a legacy in the form of hardcore evidence, so that other people can take such books or manuals and read. So when the dust is settled, I will expect that his manuals, memoirs, his diary will be put together, and maybe in the form of a book or other manual, so that the rest of us can also have access and read and emulate the good things that he did. And
Right.
may his soul rest in perfect peace.
Very, very well. That's a good point there on documentation, because it's one of the areas that we are lacking
Yes,
when
yes,
it comes
yes.
to documentation, especially of the experiences of such people, especially people in public service, But Dr. Frankie Donko, the former vice, I think one of the moments where he stood out, was during the electioneering period 2016, his banter with, the current vice president, Baumia, in respect of some number of questions that had to be answered and all. I mean, these were quite some interesting times. So you look back and remember him fondly in those lights. What are some of your memories of the former vice president?
Yeah, I think I have to begin by saying that as a country, we've lost one of the finest politicians. As a journalist, I got to know Mr. Imzata when he was, I think, special assistant to Secretary of State then, and he was always in the shadows, but I could see that he was a very effective person. And also, I think until he became vice president, many people might have not even remembered that he served in government as a
he held certain high positions.
Yeah, deputy minister,
finance
and affairs, Lawrence government as president, and then later as even governor of Bank of Ghana. He was so quiet, but he was very effective, and he was. I found him as a very accommodating politician, because during the last elections, especially, as hot as it was, even his own party at a point, they thought he wasn't coming up the way they expected him, but that was his style. And so I think that as a nation, we've lost a fine gentleman, a fine politician. And I don't think any wife or children who want to lose their husband or father the way they've lost the former vice president. And as my colleague said earlier on, it tells us how worthless human beings we are.
How fleeting life is.
Yes, we're just passing. And so showing humility in life, that what is one thing that I saw about him is what sometimes is lacking in most of us, especially when we have climbed the political ladder and then we've been up. But you never saw this thing from Kwesi Amissah. He was as humble as I saw him in those days, as humble as vice president. I think he's giving us a legacy that we should look at his life. And I don't think that what people are saying from both sides of the political divide is something that we usually do say about dead people. He's really a man who has served this nation very quietly, but very effectively. And so we pray that the good Lord will give him rest.
Very well. Mr. Jonah?
Yeah. Like my colleague panelists, I think by his passing, the nation as a whole has suffered a very, very, very big loss. Like we say, Mr. Arthur, as I knew him, was a very moderate, politically very moderate person, avoiding the extremes in politics. He's the kind of person one would call a peacemaker. I am grieving precisely because, not just because I'm of the same age, and maybe I'm in the danger zone. Maybe I'm in the danger zone now.
Everyone of us is in danger.
He was my lecturer.
He was, oh yeah.
But because we were at the University of Ghana at the same time, our rooms were just apart, a few rooms apart. And in fact, I have known Kwesi and Matilda since those days. We were appointed as lecturers at the University of Ghana around the same time. So we were living at, our apartments were very, very close. And he's somebody I have known very, very personally. And what is interesting about Kwesi is that the Kwesi I knew at the University of Ghana is the same Kwesi who was vice president. Cool, very friendly. He never changed. And so for a person like this, who everybody likes him, been in public service for such a long time, to pass all of a sudden, he didn't fall sick. For the wife even to look after him a few days and say, no, all of a sudden. But for the rest of us who are still alive, sudden deaths like this remind us of our own mortality. We are not here forever. One day we will go, and it may be sudden, it may take some time. So those who believe as religious will say that spiritually you should prepare, but I think what Pakwesi's life tells us is that it's not just a spiritual preparation to go and meet your maker, but you must be nice with people. You must be nice with your people, because sooner or later you may not see them again. So this is what I have to say about my good friend Pakwesi Msata.
Very well. On that note, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we go on to look at the other topics that we've lined up for conversation. We'll proceed with what's happening with the EC. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Newday Saturday edition. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, and we are streaming online at 3news.com. Also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. So we'll be moving on to look at some of the hot issues that made the headlines this week. Obviously, we'll start off with the removal of Mrs. Charlotte Osei and her 2 deputies from their positions at the Electoral Commission. So the President, acting upon the recommendations of the committee that was set up by the CJ or the Chief Justice to look into the allegations made against Mrs. Charlotte Osei and her 2 deputies, went on to remove the chairperson and the 2 deputy chairpersons, Amadou Sule and Madame Georgino Pokuamankwa. We'll be looking at this issue and the matters that have come out from there this week. Now, I'll start with Mr. Pong. This, this obviously has been, something that it's been a long time coming. There were lots of questions about it as to where the process had reached, the status of things, because some people thought it was, being delayed. They wanted to see some level of, expedition about it, some quick processes to it and all, but we didn't see that happen. It's taken over a year for this to happen, because looking back, it's perhaps it dates as far back as June last year when the first petition was made and all of that. But finally, it is here. The President has acted, has removed the 3 persons at the helm of affairs at the EC. So currently there's that vacancy. Did you see this outcome coming?
Well, I'm not sure I can answer directly for now. I think that is usual with us. First of all, the whole proceedings took place in camera, consistent with law, right from the receipt of the petitions by the President until just a couple of days ago or so when this news came out. Those of us who were not involved in the proceedings, either as parties or as lawyers, or at least speaking for myself, I had very little or nothing at all substantially about it until this happened. But then there could have been one of 2 outcomes. Either the petitions would have been thrown out in their entirety individually, or parts may have been admitted and a recommendation made on it, or that the petition in their entirety would have been granted. And so in a matter like this, it's just like a normal litigation. Hardly will you hear just say the case napai. I mean, everybody.
There has to be.
One person has to. That is the nature of litigation. And
it's only the World Cup.
Yes.
Maybe at 116 stage, there should be a winner.
Exactly.
Now they use the number of yellow cards you receive to kick you out. You may be at par with another country. Anyway, so there could have only been one outcome or the other. And I think that is what has happened. And we need to highlight the matters this way. And I look at Article 43, which establishes the Electoral Commission. I think sometimes the impression is created that the Electoral Commission is made up of, sometimes people even think the Electoral Commissioner. That is the chairperson.
It's a collective commission.
Yes, but there are, in actual fact, there are 7 commissioners. Right. The chairman, and you may forgive me, but I can't use the word chairperson because the Constitution doesn't use the word chairperson.
Well, but you use chairman to mean both, so it's fine.
I'm referring to chairman of the Electoral Commission. The Constitution didn't say chairperson, so I'm just being a positivist. use the words that the lawmakers who know better than I chose to use. This is just 1992. It's not far off. Gender issues were very high. But anyway, so
the Interpretation Act would make it.
Yes,
both.
it applies.
So
that is why.
exactly,
Yes.
So.
Anyway, so I won't make too much.
So your
fuss
mischief
about
is quenched.
Never mind. But I mean, so we have the 3 of them, and then we have 4 others, making it 7. And that is very important. We also know that the position of the chairman is akin to a large extent that of the Court of Appeal, Justice of the Court of Appeal. And 2 of the deputies also akin to the position of a High Court judge or Justice of the High Court. And the point has to be made also that the rules that spell out processes by which a person may hold such offices also provide for how they will cease to hold such offices. I am not aware of any state institution or office created by law which doesn't also create how you lose that job. And that is very important. I mean, death is certain, retirement is also certain, but there are usually other grounds on which...
Dismissal is not so certain?
Yes. Dismissal. There are other grounds on which you may be dismissed or removed or otherwise cease to hold the office.
That office, yes.
So, and sometimes we think that we will go for the 2 that are most certain, retirement and death, and forget that whilst you are alive, you are strong, and you are performing your functions, other things may occur which will cause you to be seized or to cease to hold the office. And so when you come to the Electoral Commission, I mean, initially there was some argument as to whether or not the provisions and Article 146 also apply to them. But I think we've gone past
that,
there.
yes.
And so when you go to 146, the procedure is well known, where the president receives a petition, and that has been interpreted in one case to mean that anybody in this country, or even an institution, or a corporate body, qualifies as a person. So when the president receives it, and I've insisted that in the extreme case, the president doesn't even have to determine whether the content is for the removal of any of these persons who come under 146. I even sometimes say that all he needs to do is when you are sending it undercover, you attach the content in this sealed envelope concerns the processes for the removal so and so person. In my view, the president doesn't even have to read it. All he has to do is to just forward whatever is in that envelope to the Chief Justice. And then the Chief Justice also, in fact, one of the best ways to assess separation of powers is this particular proceedings that we have. The Chief Justice receives it. She is the only one, for our current purpose, that is given the authority to assess whether or not the content is in relation to the removal of a person under 146, and whether it is not a waste of time. You lawyers will say she has to establish whether there's a prima facie case for a person, first of all, to warrant investigation, and 2, to call on such persons who have been named to answer any questions. And in this case, it was done. Then the Chief Justice set up the committee. Interestingly, whilst 3 have to be lawyers or retired Supreme Court, retired justices, 2 don't have to be lawyers nor parliamentarians at all. So you may quote and unquote say the ordinary Ghanaian has to also tell the commission how the people on the ground also see or how they appreciate these allegations that have been made, so that it doesn't become too legalistic and formalistic. So when these were done, the committee sat, and as the rules of natural justice demand, I expect that all the parties were given opportunity to be heard and to cross-examine those who made allegations, and those who made the allegations also to cross-examine those against whom the allegations were made. Then again, when the committee makes its recommendations, neither the Chief Justice, in my understanding, nor the President has any discretion in the matter. You cannot decide that, yes, this is what the committee is saying, but I disagree. This is not a commission of inquiry established or appointed by under the Constitution, where the president can issue a white paper to disagree with the commission, and that disagreement in the white paper will prevail over the recommendation. It's something I have serious problems with, but I think we can deal with it another time. So it is easy to confuse it with this one. But in this particular matter, no discretion at all was given to the president, nor even the Chief Justice.
It's quite clear. 1469 says the president shall, in each case, and in each case you're referring to, in the case of a Chief Justice being removed, or act in accordance with the recommendations of the committee.
Yes, so that is all that happened. So it's easy to create an impression because of the way things have been done, and as if this is also another government appointee who has been removed, or a minister of state who has been removed by the president. This is not. In fact, in this case, the president, quote and unquote, if I'm permitted to use that, it's just a conduit. It's because it was the instrument appointing...
him as a conveyor belt.
Yes. The instrument appointing the person was under the hand of the president. So it only makes sense that the instrument removing the person should also be under the hand of the president. That is all that happened. And if he had decided not to act on it, in fact, someone could have gone to the Supreme Court for an order to compel him to do it. And if he fails, as you know, it can even be a ground for impeachment.
Sure. For going contrary to the dictates
of the
Constitution.
So, just in conclusion, for me, I think that it's another example out of many that our laws work effectively here, contrary to some claim by some persons that laws don't work in Ghana. They really work. Wait until it applies to you. But I also sympathize with the persons who are involved. These are persons who have excelled in their own professional and other career and endeavors. And for the reasons, the bits and pieces we are hearing about, the grounds for the removal, I think that we need to also sympathize. After all, virtually, I mean, they have lost their jobs.
Definitely.
So we need to maybe empathize.
You seem to have those sympathies towards them, but I don't know if others would necessarily have.
No, but I'm saying that the law must bite.
Exactly, and it's better.
And when it has, but I mean, human as we are. We also have to at least show them some love. But there's a lot of job out there that I think they can still assess.
Sure. Quickly, Honorable Obiamwa, to pick up from where Mr. Opon left off, and indeed the discussion here, aside the procedure of getting the persons removed, really has to do with the question about whether the president could have gone otherwise or contrary to the recommendations, that the president, having all sorts of powers, could have, done otherwise. Mr. Opon has said in his submissions that indeed there was no choice. And I made reference to the constitutional provision here. I'm just trying to, for purposes of education, I'm just trying to understand why it is that that perception perhaps would even be there, that something contrary could have been done.
Well, thank you. I think for serious issues like this, we need to be serious in discussing them. And we have to be careful about just bringing the usual politics and then polluting the minds of maybe the uninitiated and average person. Because, of course, the Constitution and the Act will guarantee the independence, you are not subject to any control as provided. But if they have to be sanctioned, the Constitution has provided the means through which we have to do it. And as far as anybody is concerned, nobody is above the law. If for any reason one day the president has to be impeached, it's the same Constitution, it has to be used. And as to whether the president could have saved them, the only time the president probably has power to save anybody is maybe exercise his prerogative of pardon. That is when you have been tried and convicted and he thinks that he can pardon you. That's the only time, but not in such situations where the Constitution has made it very clear that you act on the recommendations of the panel. And the Constitution provides how the panel is even set up. So long as the petition has come, but the little disagreement I have with my friend here is the fact that if you're not careful and you see that the president is the post office, then every day he will be posting. When he will be posting, somebody gets up, he writes, gets half a page of something that you cannot make any sense out of it. And you say that because I'm a post office, Chief Justice determined the matter.
That's one of the functions of the president.
So do you think the president has a discretion to go into
not necessarily
anything he receives?
What I believe is that he receives a petition. Obviously, he has to read it before he sends it to the Chief Justice, because he has to write to the Chief Justice that this is a petition I've received. It's the Chief Justice who will determine whether there is any grounds, prima facie case, as to whether the matter should go on as provided in the Constitution. So the president, after that duty, would then have to wait for the final duty of saying that these are the recommendations I'm required to implement.
So if he's not a postman in that sense, then what is he? How can we categorize? I mean, I think that is used colloquially to suggest
so
a certain...
as you said, conveyor belt, because his functions are limited. Just like even the amendment of entrenched provisions in the Constitution. It's read the first time in Parliament, and then we go for referendum. After referendum, Parliament has to pass it. There's nothing like debate or amendment or anything. It comes, it's read.
Then I can't see your disagreement.
That is what it is. But where the impression is created at the moment he receives it, irrespective of what is the content, he still has to send it. That's where the two more challenges. Otherwise, every day people will be writing, before due respect.
I have further questions, but I don't want us to limit it to the petition thing, because we've gone past that. So let's just carry on. Yes.
So that is what it is. So if you hear persons getting the impression that the president could have done anything about it, or it's manipulated, etc., then before due respect, these persons have not gone deeply into what has really gone on, because some of us are aware that it was more than a trial. I mean, short of showing it to the whole world like the election petition, what really went on there, the little that we had, it was really serious business. In the first place, those on the panel, Justice Benin as chair, Mrs. Agnes Doji, Justice Mafosiang, those in the legal profession know these people as very serious, competent people. And then you add the non-lawyers, Abrapia and Rose Kakarianan. These 5 persons had to go through everything, not forgetting the fact that, for instance, some of the allegations, 27 allegations, they were whittled down to 6, because it was the 6 that the Chief Justice felt that those people had to respond. So if witnesses are called, cross-examination will come in, some were even subpoenaed, like Public Procurement Authority. They were subpoenaed to come and explain the act, how the act should operate and everything. And even procurement audits that have been done at the EC. So people should take the trouble to really listen and go through what has happened, so that they don't just make statements which may turn out to be very embarrassing. Because this is the only process that we have. This is the only process that we have. Unless there's another process that we can go to, this is the only process we have. You've given the opportunity to bring your lawyers, to defend yourself, to bring all the evidence that you have, witnesses, everything that will also inure to your benefit, so that you defend yourself. And if we go through all this, and the panel come out, the committee, the Chief Justice Committee come out with their recommendations, findings and recommendations, that means probably the only next step will be if you have the opportunity to appeal. That is another subject that we can discuss. So that is how I want us to address it. This has to be a very serious academic work, not the usual politics thing. As for the usual political thing, anybody can say what he wants. That, oh, right from the beginning, you didn't like this lady, so if she's gone, then you orchestrated it. You may not have any evidence. And of course, for some of us who have worked with them, I have been at IPAC for a very long time. I know all of them. Some of the Charlotte, even from law school days. I know all of them, but if you look at what has gone on, I'm sure we'll discuss it.
Sure.
But I always call them, interestingly, I call them whistleblowers. Whistleblowers in the sense that they brought all this matter up. They brought all these documents, evidence, everything. It was from within. And without those things, probably we couldn't have reached this point. Because several things may happen in other institutions, but you may not get evidence enough to be able to prosecute anything. Right. But here we are, these persons brought them out. Initially even sending the deputy, the first time in our history, sending the deputy to Yoko. For Yoko to instruct EC, which I found very, very problematic. And I made that point way back in 2017, that write to your deputy to proceed on leave. And it was done.
Right. Let me quickly, are you done with that?
We'll come back
to that, but I want to link your final conclusions to something that I found in, I think, PPP, the party PPP issued a statement. And they in their paragraph 2 are saying that we are not surprised at all with the outcome of the investigation. The EC commissioners themselves had prepared the nation for this end result because of their own public accusation of gross violations of our procurement laws and their articles of engagement. Doc, do you share this view that given what happened within the public space ahead of the investigations and the determinations that came out of these processes, do you think that the stage was set for this and they orchestrated it themselves?
Well, you see, first of all, the issue that people are saying, the issue is being politicized. I don't understand them because it's a political issue. So what do you expect? Yeah, it's a political issue. Both the appointment and the dismissal are political issues. And seeing the EC from afar, you could see, while before these incidents happened, that all wasn't well within, especially the commissioners. And that was a danger to our democracy in the first place. The infighting was going on, and it even escalated to a point that it could be seen outside. But those are not grounds for their dismissal.
Exactly.
Then petitions come, and then it was first at the chairman or the chairperson.
The chairperson.
Yes. And then the chairperson makes allegations against the two deputies. And so she was the person who has been accused.
I think really that was when the Pandora's box was open.
Yes.
When those counter-accusations came in.
Precisely. And the allegations she was making against the two deputies were not just some mere, some minor things. There were things that have effect on their continuing stay in office.
Right.
And then also that also breach certain things. So the things that the accusations level against the deputies were not easy ones that they also just sit back. So they also started bringing out. So the three of them were telling us, those of us outside the commission, the bad things that were going on, things that they, the three, were not supposed to do. You gave contract without this, you did this, you did that. You took money from here and that. And one wonders what was happening if you were the chair and your deputies were not working according to the rules. What actions
steps would take.
Did she take? But you see, the whole thing is played up the way it has played up. Because it's like you tell somebody, wait, I'll kill you. Then the moment you go there, the person is killed. Somebody will say, oh, yeah, you killed the person. You see? Yeah. It began from when she was appointed. For me, the NCC, the EC, and SRAG are all constitutional bodies.
Sure.
And I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding, my elementary understanding of the Constitution means that any of those commissioners, the way they have to be moved are specified in the Constitution.
Exactly.
So on what basis? I've still not had answers. Was she moved from EC, from the NCC? What power did the president then have to remove her? So I thought that was a breach of the Constitution. And then she comes in, and then some elements in the LPP say we don't want her. She's aligned to here or there. Definitely, Lenny Ghanaian could be aligned to any political party.
Sure.
And you don't expect everybody to be belonging to the same party. And any party coming to government also bring people that they want. But certain positions, even if you belong to a party, you must show that once you are appointed, you peel off your party skin and then take on the new skin. And so, because some people from NPP said, we will remove you, and then the removal has come. The conclusion is that they had worked to remove
to get
her.
her out.
But if you look at what the incidents which led to this, I'm not sure anybody in the NPP worked, because the accusations upon which these issues came are there to be interrogated. The petitions, first they said they were faceless people, later faces came.
Yeah.
And so then the DC chair said he was asking the presidency to give her a copy. I thought, why don't you respond to the issues and fight it instead of, you're a lawyer, you know where to get it. And so the whole issue is political issue. And it has played up with where it began. But in fairness, I think they themselves have run into this situation by not being able to sort things out the way it should be, and by why would the chairperson or the chairman abrogate a contract signed by one of the deputies for her to come to another contract with the same company? They could have dealt with issues in the way that will make them run the commission fairly. And the issues that came up were serious. For the chairperson to accuse the deputy that you did voter transfers illegally, it has serious impact on the elections we had.
Yeah.
And if many of us should go to Supreme Court to go back, it will not give us peace in this country.
Right.
So these were serious issues created by the commission themselves. And what I want Ghanaians to look at is, yes, it's a political issue, but we must also know that we are ruled by a constitution. And once the constitution prescribes processes for doing certain things, I don't think that we need to fault everything. And I heard one journalist talking on one radio that, or if the president receives any petitions and acts on it, then we shall all be writing petitions. But Article 146 is talking about removal of Supreme Court judges of the Superior Court,
right,
where these three people also come.
Yeah.
So it's not that any petition that the president receives and it goes through the same process. So once we want to be in the democracy, we must know that democracy doesn't work without the constitution.
Right.
And that's precisely what the constitution has done. And the president, no, I think his hands are tied in some of these cases. Get a petition, send it to the Chief Justice. Chief Justice has looked at it, set a committee. Somebody say, okay, who appointed the Chief Justice? Then there wouldn't be anybody to be appointed. Right. Because at any time...
Then there wouldn't be this process as well.
Anytime somebody has to be appointed by the president. But as soon as the president appoints that person, the Constitution makes the president unable to touch the person. So we need to respect the Constitution and then operate by the Constitution. Yeah.
Very well. I'm going to quickly move to Mr. Kofi Adams here, because clearly the NDC is up in arms about this. On Thursday, I believe that was when the news broke. Immediately thereafter, the NDC held a press conference and put out you put out your reservations about it and actually planned for a demonstration the next day. But unfortunately, that couldn't happen because of that unfortunate news about the passing of the former vice president. Clearly, I mean, if you gauge around, there seems to be the general consensus, as it were, that the president took a decision that was in line with what, I mean, like, that was laudable, as it were, that it was good that decision had to be taken, or that decision was good to have them removed. But clearly the NDC is not towing that line. I want to understand why that is the position. Do you feel that because it was during your regime that Madam Charlotte Osei was brought into office? You think this then would be an affront to you? And I'm asking this within the context of everything that has played out. The accusations, the counter-accusations, and the report. At least the full report isn't out, but we do have some excerpts going around. It hasn't been, nobody has come to deny that it is coming from the report. So we want to hold that as the excerpts really coming from that report. Looking at the content of it, you still think this was something that didn't merit the outcome that we are seeing now?
Anyway, thank you for your questions, and you've laid a very detailed foundation for me, and I hope I get the same time within the short time that we have to deal with the issues.
I laid the foundation within a short time, so I hope you can lay it within a short. You can carry on too.
When the foundation is such long, then you know that the building itself will take a longer time. First and foremost, let me state clearly that our concerns about the whole process and what has happened is not because of the persons involved. It is not because it is Charlotte or Amadou Sule or Madame Georgina Opoku Amankwa. Not the persons involved, but it is about a very principled position. If it were Honorable Obi Amwa that was there, and this is happening, we will speak and act the same. If it were Dr. Kwesi Jonah, we will act the same. So it is not because of the persons and the time of their appointment. I've listened to my colleagues on this platform and many other persons outside speak. And it is important that to discuss this final part of the decisions, going back to the petitions. We cannot discuss this final point without making some references to the petition.
I think, to be fair, the earlier speakers have all made reference to those.
Yeah, no. That's why, when we restricted to just look at the decisions and not go back to the petitions because we have traveled that journey. That's the point that I want to make. When the petitions came, some of us thought that the president could have looked at the petition and done something about it at that point.
Done what exactly?
Because I'll come to that. Because immediately you trigger the process. Like they are saying now, you may lose some control. At that point, the argument was that the president was only a conveyor belt and that could not have done anything about it, could not on his own even determine whether to push it or not. After the decision is taken, we are being told that the president is not just a post office and that the president can do something about it to determine whether to pass on a petition to the Chief Justice or not. That's double talk.
I'm not sure exactly if that is what is happening now, but
whether that's what we have been told, that the president is that
who is saying that?
Oh, Honorable Obi Amwa just said that the president is not supposed that the president
he said
is
that
not
within the context. No, he said that
the president received very serious allegations.
I'm saying that he just said the president is not a post office.
But your reaction,
the president can analyze a petition and so decide whether to forward it or not.
Very well. So. No, just a minute. The thing is this. Assuming without admitting that he did say that here, your reaction to this removal came before he made that statement. So it can be part of your reasoning why you made that statement.
You just allow me to move on. I'm only talking about the issues we raised then and the answers we got and the issues we are raising today and the answer we are getting, because I haven't even reached there. So now a decision is finally taken and people are asking questions. Why the same president who speedily acted on the petition against the chairperson of the Electoral Commission and the two deputies, he didn't spend even a day there. He received it and by the next day he has forwarded it. Another petition by the Layut to the president against the Chief Justice has sat with the president for more than 5 months. And the group that petition have been complaining. And the president have been sitting on this petition. that petition has not found favor with our president. And so people are accusing the president of not being fair and just to the office holders who come under the Article 146 category, where we are told that he is just a conveyor belt. So because people are trying to now refute the earlier argument that he was a conveyor belt, now we are getting fresher defense that, oh, the president is not a post office. The president is no longer the conveyor belt for such things, and that the president actually can analyze the petition and decide whether to forward or not to forward. And we see unfairness and just behavior by our president, who we expect to be just in as far as acting under Article 146 is concerned. That is one. Two, the Electoral Commission over the years, and if you looked at the reasons that we are hearing, but that's why we've been demanding that we should be provided the basis upon which these have happened. The Minister for Information did a press conference. He did not provide us the full details. At least I have what he read out at the press conference, some excerpts and then what have you. If you look at reasons by reasons for against the chairperson, the deputy chair in charge of operations, and the other in charge of, I think, finance and administration, you would realize that the Electoral Commission has a core mandate of registering people, conducting elections and referenda. Of course, in the performance of this core mandate, they will do procurement. We have law or an act that deals with procurement, no doubt about that. The question now is, if the president can analyze a petition, in the analysis of the president, has the Electoral Commission...
But there was a committee, Mr. Kofi Adams. So we moved from the petition to the CJ, and then there's a committee set up. The committee works, takes evidence, calls on witnesses.
That is the evidence that I'm coming to.
So at that point, the president is not in there to analyze anything.
Yes. I'm telling you that I'm coming to the evidence before the committee. All the committee abuse, for me, basically is to do with possible violation of the Procurement Act. From what I have read, there is no indication that if the commission or the chairperson of the commission chose restrictive tendering for the purposes of procuring some items and gadgets for the execution of their core mandate, the commission or the state lost some money.
But does it have to be a loss?
The
law requires that. It's a conversation we're having. So you raised the point, and I'm trying to bring out issues more. The law requires that for restrictive tendering, as you gave the example of, you need the approval of the Public Procurement Authority. Question is, was that done? No. So that you then can move on to look at the question about losses to the state or not. But that fundamental question, which is, did the commission seek the approval, or did they obtain the approval of the PPA? It's quite very fundamental, isn't it?
To continue. Sometimes, so then you go into the institution.
It was just a foundation. Now
he's building.
You go. I'm building. You go into the issues, and then you begin to ask yourself. You look into the history and the processes that the commission has done its work. How have they procured things in the past? And how was it different from what happened? Did the current commission look at the convention and therefore followed it? Was the convention lawful? Was it right or wrong? Could we have improved upon it through internalized process? My answer would be that yes, we could have done so. If you ask Honorable Obiamo, and he will tell you that internal party elections that we run, we used to run them at constituency base. And so when you are doing them, because the polling points are not so many, you engage the Electoral Commission at the district level, and then you find something for them to come and aid the conduct of either election of executives or primaries to elect candidates. Over the years, the parties have improved.
About the find something
the parties, no.
That you find something for them.
Obiamon knows that when they come to conduct our elections, they come with people, and therefore you provide them with fuel. We do so. He may deny that it doesn't happen. No problem. But there is evidence to show that both parties have done so.
And that's something that could be verified, really.
Of course. But moving on, we all have improved the participation of our members. So the MPP expanded its base, delegate base. We also did same. So the numbers involved became larger. And so the MPP has to do an arrangement with the Electoral Commission at the headquarters for their 2014 internal elections, both primaries and executive elections. And so that payment they were talking about that the MPP did was done at the top for such purposes. The NDC also opened close to about 7,805 polling stations across the country in 2015 for the conduct of our primaries. And so what happened was that the Electoral Commission that we tasked to play that role on our behalf needed to recruit staff to do so. They could not rely on their few regular staffs at the EC district offices. So they brought in people who are not their regular staff. So that payment for that exercise was not done by the political party, the NDC itself. The EC that was conducting the elections for us did so for us. Truly. And that was where Honorable Lampofo's name has been mentioned in the report. He provided information because he was invited to aid the committee in its work. That originally we issued a check to the EC. But the EC called us that they do not have an arrangement at the head office for such payments. And so because it's usually cash payments to their offices. So we needed to do a different arrangement so they could get the money to pay their office. It wasn't something that they kept themselves or whatever. So if Honorable Obiamon is indicating that, oh, they don't do that, there is evidence to show that.
But what you said is different from what you're saying.
There is evidence to show.
Them something small.
I'm saying in the past, in the Honorable Obiamon, in the past, when the delegate size to our conferences was very minimal, such arrangement, the payments we did at the headquarters level was being done at constituency level. And so you wouldn't really have records of it. It was only post-2012 we all improved. And that was why this have happened. But moving on also, like I've been insisting, did we conduct the 2016 elections? Yes, we did. Did they procure gadgets? Yes, they did. Was the outcome declared? Yes, it was declared. Was there procurement? Yes, there was procurement. Has there been indication that the procurement maybe process expected was not followed through per the excerpts that we have seen? Could there have been a way of improving it, moving on? Yes. Should there have been a ground for removal of the commissioners of the Electoral Commission? My belief is that no. Why? Because once again, they will tell me not to make comparison with what happens outside, but that is the only way we can truly analyze all these situations. If immediate violation of a procurement process should result in removal, then of course, today, we should not have been having some appointees who are not within the class of 146 still being there. Especially where in that case, the president has a right of determination, because we have read and seen report when we had this fall armyworm situation. Are you aware that there are reports out there that the Ministry for Food and Agriculture procure whatever chemicals they wanted for that process without following the laid down procurement
you may
processes?
have a point there, but that would have its own consequences if a certain process is triggered.
Yes.
So that hasn't been triggered yet, but we're looking at a situation which started and has lived through its life cycle to the end, and we're looking at it. So yes, I may appreciate, or I do appreciate these issues you're raising as possible breaches of procurement laws here and there, but given that we don't have any process ongoing or triggered to start a certain investigation, that could be shelved for the meantime until it becomes a main issue for discussion.
That is where now people get worried that why the fixation of interest by this administration on the Electoral Commission.
But Mr. Adams, I'm trying to understand you, but also I'm guided by information that was even out there before this whole report came out and the excerpts that we have. You saw the 27 allegations made against the EC chairperson. It was whittled down to 6. But if you look at the 27 out there and the responses that came, don't you find that worrying? And don't you find that for the EC, which you have consistently described as a very important institution to our democratic development and our democracy for that matter, don't you find it worrying that such things are happening or happened, and that if the Constitution makes the provision for the removal of certain persons there for misbehavior, stated misbehavior and incompetence, don't you see that that is perhaps the way to go? Do you have a problem with that?
I have read the 27 points, including what was raised earlier before even we went into the 2016 elections by key and leading members of the New Patriotic Party and what have you. I have gone through them, and my strong belief is that the institution itself could prepare itself and correct many of those things. My view is that this action should not have been taken. And I believe that it is a dent. It was a political decision that has been taken because the same president has been sitting on same petitions that he has not acted.
Very well. Let me come to Mr. Jonah here. Mr. Jonah, you've heard the various views now. What do you make of the reaction coming from the NDC that this perhaps maybe the president should have reacted in a certain way to the petition, and looking at the issues here, this shouldn't have warranted the outcome we're seeing, which is the removal of the chairperson and her 2 deputies?
I don't think the president had too much of a leeway in this matter. The crucial thing to focus on is the president has taken the decision. The 3 top executive members of the EC are going. Another team will come. The EC is such a strategic institution in our democracy that if a similar crisis should break out anytime, we are in trouble. So the question is, what exactly happened? Why are we where we are right now? I think a very key element in you will not be sitting down here and discussing this matter if there had been what political scientists call social capital in that institution. What is social capital? Trust, confidence, cooperative spirit, ethical relations amongst people. Everything that went to the president, all the filth, it is the EC people who threw it out. Now this means that on that institution, there was not sufficient, people did not trust each other, and so on and so forth, to the point that people could not even point out what you are doing is wrong. It would land us in trouble. And if you do not take steps to appreciate the importance of social capital in organizational and institutional success, we are going to run into trouble again. It seems to me that on that commission, first of all, what they should, the top executive members in any organization, if somebody comes from outside to head, don't forget, Afarijan, when he was appointed, he was within. This is the first time somebody had come from outside to head an organization, came to meet people who knew the workings of the place and so on and so forth. Now, so the thing to cultivate, trust, confidence, cooperative relations, it would have prevented all these things. It didn't happen. And look at where we are. We are not, I mean, God forbid, going to have another electoral commission that will have internal squabbles and so on and so forth and land us in trouble. We have so much to do on the electoral front. This year, referendum on regional creation. Next year, a referendum on the election of MMDCs on party basis, district level elections, followed by parliamentary presidential even the continuous voter registration that we are supposed to be doing, we are not doing it.
Right.
And so for me, if we are going to avoid all these problems. You see, social capital is not written into any constitution. It's not written into any representation of the People's Act. It is something that every organization, every institution should have to be able to succeed. And it seems to me that this was lacking. When I told somebody said, Kwesi, did you expect this thing to happen? I said, yes. I expected what I heard 3 months before the election. The same, I wasn't surprised when all these things came out. So, I am not, unfortunately, a politician, and I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer.
Political scientist.
You're a political scientist.
So you're a politician. Maybe you don't associate with any of the parties.
For the stability of our democracy, the next EC, bosses are going to be appointed. I'm sure we are going to appoint more than 3 people because some people have retired already. Some people are about to retire, and so on and so forth. We're going to appoint a lot more people. So, the next EC, they should appreciate the strategic importance they occupy in our democracy, that the stability of the whole nation depends upon them, and therefore the basic minimum trust and confidence that they need to work together as a team to push our democracy forward. Please, they should try to maintain.
Yes, sir.
Well, before you come in, Honorable,
Yes.
You touched on the bit about how it's to moving forward. So the call for reforms then would come in. Apparently in 2013, there were a number of proposals for reforms that have remained on the books or on the shelves with no implementation whatsoever. But again, you're talking about the possibility of, not the possibility, it's going to happen anyways. The people are going to come in to take the vacant positions. Is it the case that you're looking at just changing the people or having a structural reform to the EC?
You are painting on a wider canvas. When the electoral reform, Honorable, were you there?
I've always been there.
The electoral reforms that we proposed, the committee proposed, were of 2 types. Those that were within the power of the commission itself to do, and those that were beyond the commission, government, parliament, and so on and so forth. And so people sometimes tend to think that, the commission ignored some and accepted some.
They didn't have
those
the power.
that were beyond them, for example, if you want to impose term limits on officers of the EC, the chair cannot say, I want to give myself a time limit. So
they're saying those within their scope, they did.
They did some.
They did a number of them that needed to be done at that time.
Which were reflected in the subsequent constitutional instruments. How you register, the voting. Some of these reforms were done. And I even have a copy of the committee's report here.
Very well. We'll be looking deeper into the reforms or possible, reforms to the EC when we come back from the break. But before then, I'll take some messages. So please hold on to your thoughts about the reforms and how the EC is to be carried forward. This one is coming in from Kusin Ejusu Besians. He says, Pakwesi seizes his earthly existence. The late Vice President never became I'm not sure I get it, but you're saying, what shall it profit me if I gather all terrestrial items? We should all ponder soberly. Every functional brain has a daunting and uphill task. EC is political, nothing else. It's a campaign promise redeemed. President just couldn't single out Charlotte. This is Joe in Tema. And Blackus in Hohoi says the EC boss removal is just a plan of this NPP to rob us in the coming 2020 elections. Now, AU Farouk says, good morning, our laws are not working. How can faceless people petition CJ and the president to remove someone? We have a long way to go as a country. I am very shocked at the demise of the former vice president. May his soul rest in perfect peace. This is Ajay Poku Collins in Aprabo. Now, good morning to you and your panelists. I pray the good Lord strengthens the family of the late gentle vice president and may his humble soul rest in peace. That's Aram in Adenta. This one says, Abna, my advice to the president is that he is becoming so predictable. All what his party said in opposition, he's gradually fulfilling all. He should remember tomorrow. God bless. That's Aram. The president's removal of the 3 commissioners of the EC is in the interest of the nation, and it depicts his demeanor as incorruptible. That's Mr. Baka in Teshi. This one says TV3. The media is quite quiet about some prophets saying he knows those who... Okay, I'm not even going to go into that, seriously. On the issue of sacking of EC commissioner, we heard leading members of the governing NPP say if they come to power, they will sack the EC boss. And behold, this has happened. So this is stone in Tamale. Kofi Adams is using his EC's issues to rekindle his, you're saying his yes, political hopes and ambition. My advice to him is to focus on his position. He is okay. Good morning, TV3. Our former Veep's death is shocking. I express my condolences to Ghanaians, his family, and our great party, NDC. That is Topo in the Greater Accra region. Let me take the last one and we go for a break. Good morning to you and your panelists. In fact, the sudden demise of the late ex-vice president is a big blow to our nation. I wish to express my condolences to the immediate family. That's Professor Jabing Boja Solomon. Thanks for your messages. Do keep them coming through. We'll be reading them as and when we can. But we'll take a break here. When we come back, we will go back to look at the EC and look at the possible reforms that could happen there. See you shortly. Welcome back. You're still watching and listening to Newday Saturday edition. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, and we are online streaming live at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3. We're proceeding with a conversation about the removal of the EC chairperson and her 2 deputies. I'll go to Honorable OBM here. I know you have some reactions to certain things that Mr. Adams said. You can look at that, but also specifically, there are concerns that this procedure, as we saw it play out, though provided by the Constitution, perhaps given the context of it, may be problematic in the sense of it being a precedent for subsequent, governments to come, because there are people who are of the opinion that maybe the next government, if not the NPP, could want to settle scores, as it were, and so immediately would go, after these persons who would be put in there, obviously, by this government, because we can't have these vacancies, forever. We need to immediately put them and find people to fill them. What do you say to that specifically, and then your reactions?
we have to live with what we have, unless probably the Constitution is amended. Because since the inception of the Fourth Republic, presidents have had to appoint persons on the EC on the advice of the Council of State. It hasn't changed. And that's, as of the last elections, there were 5 persons who were appointed by NDC governments. And there were only 2 out of the 7 who were there and who had been appointed by President Kufuor. But we lived with it. And whether we like it or not, as we speak, there are 4 vacancies on the EC. And these 4 vacancies will have to be filled. Indeed, as of now, the EC cannot call for a meeting. There's no chair, there are no deputies, and the quorum is 4, and there are only 3 now. So the EC cannot even call for a meeting as we speak.
So the appointment or the replacement should happen immediately.
Yes, so there will be 4 appointments by this president. And by 2022, more will leave the EC. So that's how the Constitution has provided.
That's
so
the danger.
We have to live with it.
Until it's amended.
Yes, until it's amended. But the other point is that for a president and government, it will be very irresponsible on the part of any president, not even responsible, illegal, for a president to receive a petition making serious allegations in the way the institution is running, public utterances of senior or even managers of such institutions coming out to say that this is what's happening in our institution. And then this is put on paper and then submitted to the president. The president should sit on it because he has discretion not to be a postmaster. I mean, to be, you, the president yourself, should be indicted if you were ever to behave that way. Yes. So obviously, once the whole world had come to know that this is what they themselves are saying is happening to public funds and even donor funds, the best thing is for the president to send it for those who are mandated under the Constitution to interrogate these things, investigate and bring their findings. And for anybody to say that the president could have done something about it, I don't see it. And we have to be careful. If you're not careful and you want to defend this position of they should have been kept there, etc., then you're creating the impression that if there is evidence of rot or corruption or abuse of office, those things, for whatever reason, you should be able to gloss over it because that place is a sensitive place. After all, judges have been thrown out based on even a private investigator. So those things we have to be very careful about. One problem I see with the EC, which we need to address, is the fact that if you look at our constitution, apart from Bank of Ghana, no institution would have executive chairman. The EC have these 5 members who are commissioners. They don't have anybody above them. So they are supposed to run their own thing. And then they end up assuming certain powers. And because the constitution says they are independent, they sometimes try to interpret it to mean that they can do their own thing.
Yes, suppose.
And
Seven.
Yeah, 7. And then they have to do their own thing, and then some of these things will come out. Because if the excerpts that have come out indicate that things could have been done far better. After all, they have a procurement department. So what was the procurement department doing? How did it happen that the chairperson would procure and then will supervise over the same procurement? Because even in the public system, you have entity tender committee, and if it's above the threshold of the entity tender committee, it goes to central tender review board. They don't have that at the EC. So here's the situation: you come, you find the contract, you're not happy with the contract, it's abrogated because you think that the deputy didn't go through the right way. Then we are told by the report that you do the same thing. And these are big monies, not small monies. Apart from even public money, donor funding. So I think that we should interrogate this very well. And then once everybody comes to understand, whoever is sent there will know that if I cross this line, I'll be in the same situation. If people want to write petitions every day, it's not that the moment you write a petition, a person is removed. And then the merits, yes, it goes through a process. So that if the person running the institution has nothing to fear and has all the information and documents to defend himself, you can write 1,000 petitions that you want to remove the person. And then due process will take its place. After all, people are sent to court and then they are freed or jailed depending on the evidence that is adduced in court. So that we should really address our minds with. For reforms, of course, the election petition issues were brought a lot of issues that even the judges said that there need to be reforms at the EC. Dr. Afrejan, before he left, had even set up a committee, internal committee we had made up of political parties, EC members, and civil society. And what very comprehensive report as to the way forward, except that for some, they could be dealt with by the EC internally. For others, it required constitutional amendment or decisions by government. And then so for those situations, some were hanging, but some were, if this is a copy of the report of the Reform Committee, April 2015, just the last days of Dr. Afrejan. And then you'll find minutes of discussions which have gone on based on the report. For instance, a recommendation that there should be no creation of additional constituencies. That doesn't lie squarely
within the scope.
And so the EC rejected that aspect. But for certain aspects that EC should publish all police stations, their codes and location, those things, the whole list here, EC should be given money to apply to court to delete names of unqualified people from the register. The commission accepted the recommendation. Overvoting definition, the commission accepted it. Civil society organizations to be members of IPAC, it was rejected. You see, there's a whole lot of it based on some were carried out, most were carried out through the EC, the CI that we prepared, and then some too had to wait for constitutional amendments, which have, which have not been done. But we asked my good friend here, who is now a big man, Frank Yasaidonko, as he said, it's a political office, whether we like it or not, because the actions they take impact on the political space or the political situation.
Right.
But at the same time, if we all agree, elsewhere, party representatives constitute the EC. and they run their elections and nothing happens. But here, the mere fact that somebody has been appointed, that means that once the person has been appointed, the person should be in the pocket of the government of the day. But that shouldn't be the case. Otherwise, we'll never appoint the Chief Justice, we'll never appoint judges of the courts, we'll never appoint people to sensitive positions because... Special prosecutor. You understand? And unfortunately, what we say on air, sometimes the uneducated, that's what they pick and run with it.
Right.
So no matter what you explain, they will send in a message to you saying that, oh, this is what should be, so we are not surprised.
Right.
If we go that way, then our democracy and constitutional dispensation would always suffer. Because people have made up my mind. You can't convince me.
Right.
But these are serious issues that we have to interrogate. And then for us all to sit down and say, what is the way forward? How do we get an institution that we can always trust, that give or take, the outcome will be fair? If we don't agree to that and say that somebody has been appointed by this president, so I can never trust that person, we'll all be in trouble.
Right. Quickly, Mr. Okong.
Yes.
Still on the workings of the EC and the structure as we have it, there are people who are concerned about the fact that you have the chairperson actively engaged in the day-to-day runnings of, the commission. And perhaps such people would want to, see a certain distancing from the active engagements. Do you share that? And if that's the case, obviously that would require an amendment of the Constitution to happen, but that too seems not to be on the radar anytime soon.
Well, I mean, that is a very important point. And I've had occasion to even question how chairmen of some state institutions conduct themselves, or maybe quote and unquote misconduct themselves. I mean, some virtually take up offices in such institutions. They apply for vehicles to be bought for them. They actually leave home every day to go to work. But you are just a chairman of a board. And that is creating a lot of problems in the past, but I think it's even exacerbating in this present time. It's because we haven't been able to let those chairmen understand that you are not part of management. You are not the managing director or the executive secretary. So you are not in permanent employment. You are only to represent, to chair meetings of the board as and when board meetings are called, and not to wake up in the morning and take offices in the institutions, and then when the executive secretary or the CEO takes any action, then they override it and you see friction between them over time. And it is getting worse, to be honest with you, because then there is power play. This one thinks that being the chairman, you are under me, so how dare you take such a decision without reference to me? But in terms of corporate governance, that is not how it should be. So if we bring it into this, it will make sense that if this person is the chairman, her role should be clearly delineated, and if an executive secretary has to be appointed, a CEO or a managing director, howsoever you call the person, that would be a good idea. They will be tasked with the day-to-day management. Or perhaps they already have it. There's one in charge of operations. Those in charge of operations are the ones that are usually tasked with the day-to-day management, whilst he may in a sense, report to the chairman, or the chairman will sit in a meeting, and in the case of the Electoral Commission, then the Electoral Commission, the chairman is in charge of the presidential election as the head of the constituency.
The returning officer.
Returning officer. That is clearly stated, in addition to chairing the meetings and so that would be a good point. But I have heard others say that, well, if incompetence is a ground for removal of such a person, then maybe many people may have been removed or ought to have been removed up to this date. But that is one of the grounds stated in the Constitution. Sure. Article 146 says that justice of the Superior Court, and it applies to these people, shall not be removed from office except for stated misbehavior or incompetence. That is a very strong word that has attained some political connotations, but it is clearly stated there. And before you become a justice of the Superior Court, there must be exhibition of proven integrity and moral standing. Okay. You understand? And in a recent case, the Supreme Court has stated that these grounds for appointment must run through till you go on retirement, and that when you fail to exhibit such proven integrity, in addition to the fact that you must be competent, and also the absence of stated misbehavior, they must all go together. So it's not as if somebody has just conjured. The reason why they use stated misbehavior and incompetence is
for the constitutional provision, it actually says stated misbehavior or incompetence.
Yes.
But for the committee, they said and. Both. So both were established in their case.
Yes. So it's very important. Either of them is a good ground, and it is for the commission, based on the evidence and the facts before them, and after hearing all the parties and their submissions, they should come to a conclusion whether or not any person against whom such petition has been brought has failed to exhibit good sense of behavior, if you like, and also competence. If it's lacking, then it is a ground for your removal, and that is what we put it there as a people in our constitution. Right. I have heard over time that there's a petition against the Chief Justice. I don't know whether it's this particular Chief Justice or the previous one. But if there is such
the one Mr. Adam refers to.
Yes, but if the people are competent people, I've dealt with them, whether as youth or adults, they know the processes to follow. They know the judicial or other remedies. If indeed, because just to throw out the allegation, and I'm not saying it's true or not, but we still haven't seen, or I haven't, any concrete evidence to that effect. And have they written to the president, if it's true, to ascertain why no step has been taken on it? So I think that if we can indeed get a denial or an affirmation from the large youth people, it will be very important, because
from the office of the president,
because it will be a rather incongruous issue, that why in the case of this is done. But even speaking about that, as has been said, this is not the first time 146 has been. In fact, 146, if I'm not afraid, on the average is applied regularly against judges in particular. That time we don't say, oh, but is it not this judge who gave that wonderful decision? Is it not this judge who has carried himself well? When you have to come under this, all the good things you have done appear to be forgotten or extinguished. The president or even the Chief Justice cannot say that this is one of my best competent judges, but this single issue which also borders on stated misbehavior or incompetence, let us just forgive the person.
But you're looking at the four corners of the petition that has been written, the allegations made therein.
Yes.
So issues of past records and
everything. And you see, in most countries, and we all agree, the institution in charge of human rights is a very highly recognized institution Sometimes those who don't really care so much about their electoral commission, because the systems work, you can vote in space and so will be counted. I mean, on election day in the UK, for example, you can hardly even know that it's election day. Go to post office, take your form. They recognize the institution in charge of human rights, perhaps at a very high level. So the removal of the chairman of the Shraj, for example, is a very serious matter for them also. We never heard of any misgivings. In fact, in her case, she was even suspended during the proceedings. No such action was taken in this regard, even though a lot of people were also putting pressure on this president to suspend. So, in the case of Mrs. Loretta, one of the main things was about rent. The commission said you were a lawyer. You should have known or ought to have known that there are rules under Act to the Rent Act, which spell out payment of advance and all that. You failed to do it. It relates to incompetence and so on. She was also swiftly removed. And I don't see any difference between that and this current situation, nor the situation of the judges who have been removed.
Speaking about the fact that Ms. Loretta was, held to be a lawyer and should have known better in respect of the laws that are applicable. Same situation with Mrs. Charlotte Osei.
Yes.
She's a lawyer, but you see from the excerpts of the committee's report that she says, as her defense, that she didn't know that she needed approval from the PPA, as in the Public Procurement Authority, in respect of donor funds.
So I think
which is also quite...
Yeah, you see, the point that has to be made, and Obi had some privileged information about the judges. Whether these named judges of members of the panel or not, we are lucky in this country to have very independent-minded judges who will just give their decisions based on the law, their conscience, and their oath. You can hardly get any decision. Of course, when you lose, you can pontificate and fashion out some grounds, non-law or non-legal grounds, and say even some, it's because maybe this and these things happen. But on the whole, when you take even the decisions and you analyze them, you will see that this is a fair decision. If you are dissatisfied, that is why we have other layers of appellate institutions that you can go. And in this case, I have not seen anywhere in the Constitution that says that when a decision like this is given, your right to assess any judicial remedy is extinguished. No.
Even some of the judges are back in court.
Yes, even in ECOWAS court. You see, so in this situation, thankfully, I think all those involved, the three, two of them senior lawyers, the other very experienced, excellent public servant, they all know their rights. And perhaps that's why they've kept quiet. They, at least in the case of the EC chairman, one of the most competent lawyers in town that I can mention was a lawyer.
Yeah.
They've gone through the processes, and if they are aggrieved by the decision, I think that it is within their right. They know the processes and to take up the remedies from here. So, in conclusion, I think let us trust in our institutions. Whilst we insist that when the allegations such as this are made against other people, they can go through it, because judges, for example, have no opportunity to respond in public. In the case of others, let us also accept that this is in accordance with law. Persons, judges, humans make mistakes or errors. That is why there are other opportunities for you, available to you, to assess and test whether or not even a decision instead of then pitching comes and perhaps making some statements that can be a bit frightening.
Very well. Yes. Speaking of frightening statements, yes, Mr. Kofi Adams. So, what is the way forward for the NDC? Your planned demonstration obviously could not happen because of that.
I would want to spend my time to deal with the issues rather than even the way forward. First and foremost,
I went on the way forward because I listened to you in your press conference, and I saw you being very passionate about it. That's why I'm asking.
I'm unaware of any judge that has been removed for issues that are not part of the person's core business, like maybe procurement issues or any such other issues. I'm aware of judges that have been removed who the allegation was that they allowed themselves to be influenced in the decision that they made in relation to a matter before them. That's whether somebody is freed or goes to jail or pays, and that is directly in relation to their core mandate. The issue of the charge, if the mere reading of Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, if you violate such things that include and involve your core mandate, it is a very serious breach that we should not just slip over. And I insist the Electoral Commission has a core mandate. Did they fail to perform this core mandate? No. 2, has there been any evidence of corruption? Nobody is saying that if there's evidence of corruption, let's not deal with it. That's not what we are all saying. Our argument has been that per the excerpts that we've read and seen, it is saying that they violated a process.
The Procurement Act.
Procurement Act. But that violation itself, have we truly analyzed to say that there is corruption?
But they're looking at the violation there, which is
again, it's easy for people to use certain words because it suits so well the mindset and maybe the viewer thinking. And sometimes I don't want to mention in that Honorable Obiama in question, he said if there is evidence of corruption, so we are saying that the president should gloss over or do. No, that's why you said. So I wrote it immediately. You said so. When you use some words, there's power behind words. That there is evidence of corruption, and some people are asking the president to gloss. Nobody is saying that if there is evidence of corruption. That's why we are questioning that. Truly, we would have thought that a further quality analysis by the committee would have been done. That because the EC chair did not go through all these processes, if she had gone, there was possibly company A or would have been paying 5 cedi instead of the 10 cedi that we paid in this circumstance. That has not been done. All we have used, because she did not seek permission from the procurement.
But the committee had a terms of reference, i.e., the petition and its content. Going outside there could have raised other issues about going beyond.
Who determines these terms of conference? The Chief Justice determines it for them.
It's a petition. There's a petition on the table.
There's petition, and who determines? Who established the prima facie case?
By the CJ.
By the CJ, and gives them their terms of reference.
So look into those specific allegations.
And you remember when all this was done, people were raising very serious issues about even the terms of reference. And I remember the Chief Justice then coming out to say that you could be cited for contempt because she was, if you continue to criticize her committee. No, she came out. She came out strongly. No, but she stated so. This was news. This by law. And I'm saying that the secretary was saying that the publication that came out was in the name of the Chief Justice. And because it was her committee.
You wanted to say that they are before a committee.
And I'm saying that, Honorable Obiamo, when all of you were speaking, I sat quietly, as if I had no reservation, but I had them. And you keep interjecting when I'm speaking.
Mr. Adams has the floor. Please allow him.
So what I'm saying is that people had concerns, and they were raising it. And those concerns that were raising, it came to the attention of the Chief Justice or the Judicial Council, if you want me to say so, and they issued a statement. But that threat of contempt maybe made some persons to draw back from continually raising the concerns that. So if today the committee, based on its terms of reference that people had issues with, have limited their work and made recommendations upon which the president have acted. Now that the report has come and an action has been taken, it doesn't stop people from at least going back and raising issues and critiquing the work that the committee,
right now that it's done,
the committee has done, and that is exactly what we are doing.
So let me just get you. Are you saying that they it wasn't sufficient for the committee to look at the allegations specifically that were before them to investigate, which was the breaches or the alleged at the time alleged breaches of the Procurement Act.
You procure item A, it costs so much. You should have sought permission from the procurement authority before doing so. You didn't do that. So
that was the allegation, and the committee was to look into that.
Was just to look at that, whether you sought permission from PPA before doing. They did not go beyond that to also find out.
And so that makes it
for short of really telling us that there was any act of corruption for which you can say that stated misbehavior or this or that and leading to the removal. Of course, that's what I'm saying. A simple audit of their activity would have come through with some recommendation that this is how you must do things. Like you said, I haven't read the details. That one of her defense was that she didn't know that for this type of funds, you needed to secure the permission of public procurement authority before going ahead to execute. So this clearly what she meant, how she thought things were being done, and she did it. But then we have been told.
Was it contrary to law is the question.
Of course.
Exactly.
Well,
that's the finding.
We have said so here that it may be contrary to the law, but did they truly affect the core mandate? Particularly, I'm all the time interested in the core mandate, and we can't run away from that. Lawyer Yawopon talked about the La issue, and the La Youth have mentioned him in the past in their publication that he once advised them that they should send the La Youth, those that send the petition, yes, that he has advised them to send a copy of the petition to council of. I think one of your public comments on that issue.
This is the first time I'm even commenting on this. I haven't commented on this before.
You've never commented anywhere asking them to send copies.
I'm not
saying he's an advisor.
No.
Because he said they know what to do. And so in that person's response that I listened to and heard that, based on your comment, they took steps and on the 14th of February 2018 submitted the same copy that was given to His Excellency the President to the Council of State.
This is unbelievable.
So maybe it is not. Maybe it is not you, but at least a lawyer has commented that if the President is not acting, they should take steps and send copy of that petition to the Council of State.
But Mr. Opoy said he categorically denies that.
And I'm saying that if he's denying, it doesn't mean that did not happen. I'm talking about information that is out there. People are speaking as if, there is no petition. People are trying to say as if, there's no petition. And so the President has not done any wrong by not forwarding, because in their debate and argument, there's no petition. I am insisting there's a petition. And that petition was delivered through the post system, and so it's been registered, it's been received, so nobody will come and say that no, we did not. There's evidence.
Now the La people have just not
they have been speaking. They have been speaking, and that is why I have heard it. Okay, you are hearing today, so you should become an advocate that the President should act on those petitions.
Well, what I'm saying is
I may try and get a copy.
Do you speak for them? You don't speak for them.
We need to take a break at this point. I'm sure that when we come back, we'll wrap up on this conversation.
I'm sure that when I get it, I'll get a copy for you so that you become an advocate that the President.
We're taking a break, gentlemen. We'll take a break.
Okay, so when we come back,
shortly when we come back to wrap up on this conversation, and then move on to look at the creation of regions and the committee's reports in that regard. Welcome back. You're still watching Newday Saturday edition. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, and we're online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. We'll just be wrapping up here with the comments or perspectives by Dr. Frankie Asari-Donko, and then we'll move on to the creation of regions. Let me take some messages that have come through. This one is coming in. Okay, there's no name, but it says, good morning, Abena. Let's not, where's this? Okay, I just lost that one. On the EC issue, let's not be happy seeing all three off, as in all three commissioners off, because it's going to pose a challenge to the new faces to easily understand the dynamics in order to carry successful tasks. I pray they will learn fast and cooperate with the existing staff for effective job. Now, good morning, Abna. With all due respect, can you ask Mr. Kofi Adams if he was comfortable with the revelations that the EC itself brought upon themselves? It was clear from day one, these three commissioners lack the competence to work together. Their removal is a good omen for our country. The NDC should go on and defend the EC chairperson. Will go ahead and defend the constitution of our only country. This is Papayao Benson in Sehirioso. Newtown from Volta Region, North Dai District says, if Kofi Adams is talking about faceless petitioners against EC chair, then what of Anas, who is shaking the whole country and nobody knows who he is? Okay. The intention of NPP is to rig the you're saying to rig the 2020 elections, hence the removal of the EC officials, so as to make way for the rigging. This intention of the NPP is potential signal that Ghana would be leading to, okay, you're saying some civil war. But on this issue, yes, don't you find it quite interesting that people would think the NPP or this government would want, yes, because they want to create a certain conducive environment in 2020.
But you
this
see, the point
EC,
is
the current EC,
the government that appoints the EC, substantial evidence that rather loses the next election.
Very well. So yes, to Doc, if you could touch on this last text and then also your comments in conclusion.
My point, I thought that I would be given the chance to finish up my point, because I was hardly given any time to raise
Mr.
my
Kofi Adams,
issue
I will come to you. I'll give you some. I gave you much time, but I mean, I would
sure?
just. Oh, I did.
When you leave, get the opportunity to.
But I'll come back to you to wrap up for me.
Analyze.
I'll come back to you.
Yes. One point I'm a bit confused is why Kofi Adam and his party said they were going on demonstration about the removal of the EC, the three people.
You're so confused after his explanation.
No, because in November 2015, when Lamte was removed, case came, the president even suspended her while the committee was working, which is Article 146(10) allows the president. In this case, the president did not even suspend them, just allowed them to be in office until the committee worked. So I'm a bit lost as to why NDC wants to do a demonstration. And then one thing is that when the EC chair did report a deputy to Iyoko, then she herself might have seen a stated misbehavior or incompetence. So the issue that Kofi was saying that if you are going to the core mandate, I don't think the Constitution talk about core mandate, but once it is stated misbehavior and incompetence, the committee would have also gone through that. But one
in reaction to allegations that they had themselves to look into.
Even what came from the three of them were serious enough.
No, but the EC's chair's report was to do with their endowment.
Mentality.
Yes.
No, because I was my name directly on it.
I was responding
to Adams, I'll come to you briefly, please.
Yes, I was
allow him to.
That does not mean that she was asking so for the deputy to be removed, but
very well.
Want to be the one to handle that matter directly.
I wouldn't go to Iyoko when I lose my goat. You see, a goat.
When you lose your goat.
A goat.
But this is not a goat.
Yes. So going to Iyoko,
staff's endowment
which cases will Iyoko be calling to come in? Very serious ones. So for her to go there means that she found something which was not correct.
Right.
Okay. So let's look at the issues, and I know that it's a political issue. Let's look at the issues. But one thing is that since the beginning of the Fourth Republic, I'm sure that just the NDC government appointed all the commissioners that we have.
That's not true.
The chairman.
The chairman. You're talking about the chairperson.
He says all the commissioners now.
The chair of the commission.
The chairpersons, yes.
NDC has lost 2 elections. So I don't think that by merely appointing the chairperson we will win an election. I don't think there's any guarantee for electoral victory because the government appoints.
He have lost 2 elections because he agrees that we
it was a slip of tongue. No, it was a slip of tongue. Carry on. So 3.
Yeah. So, so you see, let us not be talking about because maybe a party wants to have an advantage. That's why they are doing this. yes, as I said earlier on, it's because of the initial issues that came up about Charles' appointment. But I'm not sure what has happened has anything to do directly with what people said. We will remove hair and all that. If anything at all, the facts are there now. So we need to look at those ones. But whether we like it or not, the Constitution allows the president to appoint. So what we will wish to see, because now we have a lot of electoral activities, things that the EC should have done. And I'm wondering what any further delay will cause the nation. Even the committee, to take almost a year, this issue came a year. That's too long. Just like the election petition.
Well, they started working sometime November, so not necessarily a year. Yes. For the committee sitting, that was sometime
not
November,
only the committee,
the whole process started, yes.
The whole process has taken about a year. I wish that we could have done it a bit faster, same as the election petitions.
That was 8 months or
8 months, yes.
That was
so
equally.
Perhaps as we move forward, we need to see ways that we could deal with some of these issues, because the Electoral Commission has a whole long of itinerary that it should have been doing by now. And with all these issues, what I would say is that the president now has the mandate to appoint new commissioners. And whatever consultations he has to do, I'm sure he's already doing that. We need to get replacements as quickly as possible. And I also appeal to the NDC that going on demonstration on this issue, I'm not sure it's in the interest of the nation. They could advise those who are involved to go to court, because they have the right to go to court to challenge whatever has happened.
They have a right to also demonstrate.
Yeah. Why didn't you demonstrate when Lolita Lamte was?
Maybe you were not listening to me. I talked about the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice.
Yes.
What is their core mandate? What are they expected?
So you thought that was justified,
but
this wasn't. That's
the core mandate.
So
that's
your opinion.
To the EC activity,
that's your opinion.
What they were doing to them had nothing to do with their core mandate.
It's unfortunate.
In our opinion, they executed their core mandate so well.
Very well. So that is your opinion, but there's definitely the counter. That's fine.
If they did that so well, I'm not sure the EC chair would have even first go to Yoko. I'm not sure.
There because they didn't do their work well.
Because a deputy
to finish, and then we move on. We don't have much time.
A deputy did
because of endowment.
No.
Ask him those questions. Let him wrap up. Let him wrap up.
Please let
him wrap up.
The EC chair accused his deputy, Ahmed Sule, of doing illegal transfer of votes. But it's really sad to lose people who have got electoral experience. Amadou began as a regional director and has gone through for all these years. So for me, it's sad that as a nation, we lose people like this. But it was the EC chair herself.
Are we aware that we are
EC chair herself.
He disagreed.
Mr. Adams, please
EC chair herself. Who raised issue that he had done illegal electoral vote transfer. Something that they could have internally, as a chair, reprimand the deputy and then resolve it. So we need to look at the issues and not taking it beyond the political level that it should be, because the nation's peace and democracy is at stake now. We need to get the commission back to working condition.
Very well. Quickly, Ms. Adam,
Abner.
2 minutes. In fact, a minute. Then we go on to the creation of
2 minutes. Then you come down to a minute. Then it means it goes to zero.
It won't go. Just carry on.
All that I want to say is that we are not demonstrating or raising issues because of the persons involved.
You said that, yes.
And so people should stop telling us that we should go and advise those involved to go to court. That advice is not needed from anybody.
Yes.
Because we are not doing it because of them. We are doing it based on a principled position that we think that what has happened is wrong and it will affect our democracy. Okay. We think that it is the continuation of bastardization of institutions of state, and which is wrong. And we have a right as a political party to raise those issues. However, they have sacked them. So a vacancy have been created. The president and his party, in just an appointment of one person to add to the 6 already existing, raised hell in this country about consultations, about this, and even sponsored people to go to court about it. This will be the test for His Excellency the President, how he goes about appointing not just one, but all the three main commissioners. You see, the commission is made up of 7. The chair and the 2 deputy are the day-to-day functioning ones. The rest just come for when meetings are called, they come and take part, and then they take decision, and then they go. The president now, this is the first time one president will have the opportunity to appoint the chairperson of the commission, the 2 deputies, and 1 other commissioner. This is the first time that is happening. This will...
Carry on.
Nobody is saying it's not his prerogative. What we are saying, I'm not responding to him. What we are saying is that even in the appointment of just 1 person out of the 7, they raise hell in this country. We want to see how he's going to go about appointing 4 persons.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kofi
Whether
Adams.
he will prove to us that what he says we should believe him, or once again, it's another campaign talk.
Thank you very much. We will
proceedings should be published.
Yes, we need otherwise there's the whole the speculations and all of that will just be going on. Yes, but we need to take a break. But before that, let's take a listen to the president whilst he was speaking on the issue about the creation of the 6 new administrative regions pursuant to the recommendations of the Justice Brobe Committee. And then we will come back to look at this topic.
I was particularly pleasantly struck by the several occasions in the course of those proceedings when important personalities from different political persuasions saw common ground on the need to create new regions. It is clear that the process has been demand-driven and reflective of the will of the people as the Constitution so intends. This is the first time that in a constitutional era, regions are being created under constitutional provisions. The work of this commission will definitely be one of the landmarks in that journey. History will definitely applaud, I have no doubt, the manner in which this commission has discharged this historic duty.
Good. So that was a precedent there when the committee presented their reports to him on Tuesday earlier on in the week. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will delve into this committee's report and the fact that they've recommended some creation or the creation of some 6 regions. We'll be back. Welcome back. So we have just about 13 minutes to go on the show, but we have a very important topic to look at, which is the creation of new regions. And that was announced this week when the Justice Brobe Committee presented its report that the work that they did in respect of the creation or the demand for the creation of new regions in the country. The report, though yet to be made public, we do hear or are made to understand that they've made recommendations for 6 regions to be created, and they are going to be 2 created out of Brong Ahafo to have Ahafo and Brong East, 2 out of the current northern region to have Northeast and Savannah, and then the others are 1 from Western to be known as Western North and the other from Volta to be known as Oti. Obviously, this was one of the NPP promises going into the elections. I must add, though, that the NDC also had some promises in this regard, some creation of regions. But the NPP came into office. They've gone ahead with this. There are questions as to the importance of this, given where we are at as a people in terms of development. Wouldn't we rather be better off putting the monies that would be used for the, even for instance, the organization of the referendum alone is so much? Wouldn't it be better for us to put this money into the development of some districts and see to the improvement of the livelihoods of the people? Honorable Obiamwa, what do you say to people who are raising these concerns?
Well, the need for creation of regions has been on the table for quite some time. There's been petitions upon petitions. And indeed, probably for the 2 major political parties. So it's part of the manifesto that we will look at these petitions and, if possible, set up a commission of inquiry. Indeed, if you look at the NDC Abridged Manifesto, Changing Lives, Transforming Ghana, page 72 to 73, it says, set up a commission of inquiry to look into the creation of new regions with intention to increase the number of regions to 15. That's what the NDC said. And we also said that going forward, this should be the situation. But of course, there's a procedure. The constitutional procedure is provided. You can't just say that you're creating the regions. That's why under CI 105, the president set up the commission of inquiry. And then the petitions that he had received, he sent them to the Council of State. Council of State came back and said that this is justified, you should find a way of going, setting up a commission of inquiry. So far, the commission has done its work, presented its report. The president has also made the comments bordering on what we are required to do under the Constitution. Eventually, we are hoping that the last quarter of this year, there should be a referendum regarding only those regions, for instance, those of us, the areas affected, so that those of us not affected will not be voting. And then the Constitution has provided the threshold, 50% voter turnout, 80% endorsement. So if we're able to go to that length, then of course new regions will then have been created and the other procedures will follow. Very well. Unfortunately, we don't have much time, so I'll just do really fast. Now, Mr. Jonah, question about the relevance and the use of money. As you know, I said earlier, the referendum apparently is going to cost about 932 million Ghana cedis to have this, and there are those who are saying, why don't we channel it into other areas? Because really, history will tell us that the creation of these regions, and even to some extent districts and all, have not really turned out the way we want to see in terms of development. Has it really brought development to the people, or has it really taken governance closer to the people, which often has been the motivation or the rationale behind such endeavors?
No, there have been two major reasons why we created regions. One, administrative convenience. Is it very easy, for example, to administer the whole of the Volta region from the capital, Ho? The people living in the northernmost part of the region, do they have access to the capital easily? If it is not, the people themselves then begin to demand the creation of another region. The same thing applies to the Western region where I come from. The northern part of Western region, they go to Kumasi, they don't come to Secondary Takoradi, for their businesses. Administratively, they are on the Secondary. And so I think it is because of the administrative difficulties that the people living in those areas demand. And then that is why you see, it's not just one party, but the two major parties were all trying to respond. Now, for me, the creation of additional regions in response to demand from the people is good. But why are the people living in those parts complaining? Because we haven't developed transport and communication to the point where it will make it very easy to administer those parts. So what we need to do, if we want to avoid the creation of more and more regions, will be to invest. But the amount of money involved is so much, you are better off as a politician just promising that I'll create the region for you.
But the thing is, even though promising, they actually
even though if you create the region, you are going to have to invest a lot of money.
Exactly.
And development will come there.
A lot of money. So the politicians virtually have no choice. The people are demanding. It is difficult to administer. Then they have to respond. I will caution that we simply cannot continue creating and creating and creating more regions. And like the creation of districts, when we have finished with this round of creation, we should take another hard look at the conditions under which, otherwise, NPP has created, I'm also going to create, and then we end up with 100.
Exactly. And then putting a burden on the public purse as it is, because the government begins or becomes
once you create a region, the capital should have every facility.
Right.
That original.
But that doesn't always happen, does it?
It takes time. Why it took a long time. Even now, they still lack some facilities.
Very well.
Beyond the creation, I think sometimes, depending on the steps you take, development will just come automatically, naturally. There's no reason why Ministry of Agric should be in Accra. I mean, you can easily move Ministry of Agric to, let's say, Western region, You can move fisheries. Of course, well,
But people question why Western, and that would,
no,
I mean,
the point is, as for
of
questioning, they will.
arguments.
If I mean, when you are in power, you exercise that authority. I don't see any reason why all these ministries are concentrated right in the center of Accra, even very close to the marine. You understand? And there's no reason why you can't even move the economic capital or the political capital from Accra. This has brought, I mean, the Yamoussoukros and the Abuja and so on. You see, when you move this, especially where the embassies are located, naturally, people will move there. Apart from the general political development, personally, the people there who own the lands, they are going to gain more because the value of the land is going to be enhanced. I mean, lands that are being bought here for $1 million, I can dash it to you in my village. Not because we have it in abundance, but it's because there is very little value on it. These values will be enhanced only where there is a kind of political presence in this region. So as we are thinking about creating or altering the existing regions to create others from it, we should also think about moving. If somebody is a minister and he cannot live in the regions as the head of the ministry, or chief director cannot live in Western region as the head of the Ministry of Agric or any other such ministry, then he doesn't want to work for the state.
Very well. But there are issues still around the decision as to where to locate certain things, which would require
developments will come automatically.
Otherwise,
that's what I'm saying.
Another government comes, and then that decision is undone.
Instead of you expanding the airport here, why don't you create a new one somewhere in Kintampo, in the center of Accra?
And like Mr. Jonas said, it will require capital to get all those things.
But I'm saying that it will rather even be reduced because people will be compelled to establish their heads of institutions there, whether as private people or even as the government itself.
Very well. I know. I go to Mr. Adams, please. Your position on this. Obviously, it was something the NDC was also looking at.
It's not something we are opposed to, except that it must be done and done well. So at the end of the day, you don't use it to divide a people that should not be divided. The way to go about it should be inclusive. The consultation process should go very well. We should still continue to listen. We should not be intransigent that, okay, we've set up the committee, they have done their work. If they report that they have brought, some people are not happy, we don't have time to listen to them again. And I have proposed, like Lawyer Yaopon is saying, that we should start decentralizing and even having some ministries away from the capital city. Of course, Accra will remain a capital city, but you can create other cities. You can move some institutions to some parts of the country, and that necessarily will bring development. I'm also worried about figures that we are throwing out. The figures that we are throwing out as cost for the referendum. The question I want to find out is, who brought these figures? Was it the Electoral Commission or somebody sat somewhere?
Apparently, it was in the budget, 2018 budget, and that should have been
raised some. That's a huge budget that I believe that we must seriously watch. So Ghana don't get shortchanged that the process leading to just deciding whether to create a region or not will cost us so much, and then we'll put so little money in the hands of these regions when they get created.
Let me go to Doc for your perspective on this.
Yeah, I think happily the two big parties are all agreed to
this. I did them on this. Thank
God.
And
I think the commission, both the commission and the minister, Damotre, have done a good job. I followed the consultations, and like Kofi is saying, there must be room for still views until the final decision. But those who are saying that merely creating regions will not bring development, I tend to disagree, because UK is a developed country. Until 1979, when they actually implemented the devolution, where Scotland and Wales had their assemblies, you could see that there have been massive development in Wales and Scotland, because they are not following the previous system where everything was centralized. So I believe that once we create the regions, we bring governance to the doorsteps, closer to people, and development will follow.
Very well. Thank you so much. And I want to say a big thank you to the panelists, Mr. Yaopong, Honorable Obi Amwa, Mr. Kwesi Jonah, Dr. Frankie Asari Donko, and Mr. Kofi Adams. And also thank you very much for spending your Saturday morning with us. We do appreciate your time and your comments. We'll be back here same time next week. Do have yourself a very good weekend and a productive week. Bye-bye.